Good evening. Singapore is not well. The nation is overworked, stressed, and struggling to survive in a culture of merciless competition amid an uncertain future. We're apprehensive about the economic landscape, our job security, and what we see is not helping. Mass retrenchment exercises, as we've seen in the instances of Deutsche Bank, HSBC, and more recently, HP. A job market that, let's just say, isn't exactly flourishing at this point. This year, job vacancies dropped for the first time since 2017. And economists are saying that in this point in the employment cycle and for months to come, jobs will be harder to find and even harder to hold on to. These things, all in addition to existing fears of a skewed reliance on foreign labor and the impact of that on the Singaporean business landscape. Just a couple of days ago, I was speaking to a young Singaporean, someone my age, and I asked him, what issues do you and your peers feel strongly about? And this is what he said. Many of us feel like third-class citizens in our own country. Why? For a couple of reasons. But for one, when I applied for a job recently, I was interviewed by a foreigner. Fresh graduates have trouble finding jobs because there's no real distinction between Singaporeans and foreigners when it comes to the PMET sector especially. And when they're awarded citizenship, do we really know to what end and what the criteria is, and if they're going to remain loyal to Singapore over their home country in the long run? But you know, there are also stories of foreign workers who feel discriminated against where job eligibility is concerned. People who would probably be fairly suited for a particular role, but get disqualified on the basis of nationality or citizenship. And of course, that would feel unfair. And of course, that would sting. Because there are people here who are here because they see the potential to carve out a better life than the one that they would be having at home. They know they can contribute, and they're willing to take a risk on Singapore, on us. There are people who are here because they are truly highly qualified and can add value to our economy, and hopefully our society as well. And these are people that we shouldn't automatically reject or dismiss or be prejudiced against. Our position isn't that we want an economy that is overprotected in favor of Singaporeans or a society that is insular and intolerant. We're absolutely not for that. Because there's nothing wrong with introducing non-locals into our talent pool, especially given the highly interconnected global economy that Singapore is a part of and benefits from. But we do need to ensure that our workforce policies do not inadvertently disadvantage Singaporeans. And also don't give rise to the impression that foreigners are edging Singaporeans out of roles that they would otherwise, that do not need to be filled by anyone other than a Singaporean. Because this is not good for foreigners either. This perception creates a bigger divide between the two camps, between us and them. And we really should be looking for ways to balance the scales in favor of a more mutually beneficial solution. So we do need to take a good look at our job market to ensure that, for one, the flow of foreign labor into and out of Singapore is well managed and matches demand by sector. And this is important not only because of the economic implications. Job insecurity and the stresses of having to cope with constant change, to cope with making ends meet in a city that has been deemed the most expensive in the world to live in, puts people under great pressure. Pressure that is exacerbated by a societal culture that tends to place excessive weight on power and status over more compassionate metrics of what it means to live a successful life. And we see this in so many situations. We see this all over. And we endure this culture because we largely feel really dispensable and undervalued. And we feel that the powers that be aren't going to stand up for us and aren't going to fight for us. At work, this culture of fear and insecurity translates into all sorts of toxic behaviors. basically because we feel that we need to protect ourselves. Never mind if we hurt someone else. And this is not just theory. It's happening all around us. It happened to me when I never thought it would. It's a topic that's become close to my heart, a cause that I'm passionate about championing, and a problem I think we need to remedy together: workplace bullying. A recent survey conducted by Kanta indicated that out of the 18,000 people that were polled globally across 24 industries in 14 countries, including 1,000 Singaporeans, revealed that 24% of Singaporean employees had been bullied in the workplace last year alone. That's 1 in 4 of us, the highest percentage in the world. And that's really not something we want to be ranked number 1 for. And it's not even that. With a rate that's so alarmingly high, this means that if not you, it could be your daughter, your father, your best friend, or your wife who is currently suffering from the effects of workplace bullying, workplace harassment, or workplace abuse. And I think that we can all agree that no one should have to endure any form of workplace abuse. And this can take many forms, including verbal intimidation and humiliation, intentional isolation, or not being paid on time. But however, this problem has been allowed to fester here in Singapore. And it's a bigger problem than meets the eye. Many instances of harassment are likely underreported to the authorities because there's not a lot of clarity as to what the obligations of employers are. And many people just don't really know to whom to turn when things go south. So we need to do more. Things like adopting and ratifying the International Labour Organization's Convention on Workplace Harassment and Violence, which, by the way, we were one of 6 countries to not sign. Things like giving the Tripartite Alliance on Fair Employment and Practices more enforcement powers. Things like lobbying organizations to raise awareness for the issue so that people have a better idea of how to cope, so that they don't feel so alone and helpless. Things like when you see someone being bullied at work, step in and stand up for that person. If you have an employee, no matter how high-ranking or brilliant, who is damaging the culture of your company, intervene rather than close an eye. We need to take action to create the kind of culture we want, a culture of enlightened, compassionate, and respectful leaders working to develop supportive, collaborative, empathetic teams of people. Because it is essentially as simple as this. In the same way that employers must ensure the physical safety of their staff as enshrined in the Workplace Safety and Health Act, it is more than reasonable that they should also be held responsible for creating and sustaining a psychologically and emotionally safe environment for people to thrive in. And it just makes sense because employers benefit greatly. Thank you. Employers benefit greatly when the people that work for them are happy, engaged, and productive. And in any case, treating people decently and with respect should be the baseline for any interaction. Because this is not just about harassment in and of itself. This is important. This issue has broader ramifications that affect not just an individual's welfare. It has an economic impact as well. Because firstly, the people who have been subjected to workplace harassment often experience adverse effects on their mental health, right? Which makes them unable to perform at their best at work and also affects their personal life. Conditions that take considerable time to recover from and a lot of money to treat. And secondly, when we look at the big picture, things that I've brought up before, we look at the state of our economy, we look at our job market, we look at how we're treated, the culture that we live in, and we evaluate whether all this is aligned to the vision of what we think it means to live a good life. And when we do, it's not particularly shocking that a lot of good, talented people are leaving our shores or are thinking of doing so and putting down roots elsewhere. A recent IPS survey revealed that 1 in 5 young Singaporeans would like to emigrate, and 60% say that emigration to them would be inevitable because Singapore is just getting way too competitive and way too stressful. So this would not only lead to a brain drain of talent and intellect, this might well result in a society of people who can tolerate or even celebrate a mercenary culture. And those who may not have the means to move and might become disenchanted and embittered. So basically, a society that will become more and more unsavory. And we really don't want that for Singapore. I don't want that for any one of us. I would love Singapore to one day be known not just for its rapid ascent from third world to first, for gardens by the bay, or Jewel, or any of those materialistic achievements, but for its soul, and for being home to people with big hearts. And it's a compelling reason for why I'm here with the SDP, because this is a party of precisely such people. It's a party.
God is testing us. We must unite.
It's a party that doesn't just say it's competent, compassionate, and constructive. The leadership, the members, the volunteers, they mean it. They embody it. And you can see those tenets in the policies that the party formulates. And so I hope I can do what little I can with what I have from where I am to contribute meaningfully to and alongside my fellow Singaporeans for the well-being of a happier, healthier Singapore. A Singapore with heart. Thank you.